Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We're back up and we're ready to go and hit the last 10 days of the transfer window with a storm. Helping me bounce back quite literally on this show, I'm joined by three fabulous guests that are going to try and hopefully help manifest, hopefully a positive end to what has so far been a difficult, tricky, and what some would say in parts, a disastrous transfer window. He needs no introduction. Back alongside me, I've got the wonderful Connor over at Levynomics 1882. Con, it's the evening after the night before, and we've got to go again, mate. We've got to go again, haven't we? We've got to go again.
Wow, mate, if Tottenham's taught us nothing, it's resilience, right? So let's get into it. But yeah, nice to be back on and good to be on with Ash and Brian as well.
Bless you, mate. You're right. I think if one thing this club does teach you, it's to be, well, it's character building, right? It's character building. And Brian will know that because he's had more knockbacks for this club than probably a lot of us in this last 10, 15 years. But Brian, we have got to move on. There is no one player or no one person bigger than the football club. And we will come again, which is probably worrying people what comes again in this next 10 days. Because to be fair, it's slap dash panic, full on Levy mode right now, isn't it, in terms of what comes next?
Yeah, unfortunately it is, isn't it, Ricky? We were on the show. First of all, great to be on the panel again, and thanks for having me. We ended that show a couple of days ago. We were just saying on such a high, with such belief and such optimism and such eagerness that things are going to get done, for it all to come crashing down yesterday in only true Tottenham style. But now we dust ourselves off.
Yep.
We hope there is a plan B. And we're going to discuss a few of the players that might actually be on that list.
Yep. Well, I think it's fair to say at the moment, given what we need to do, I hope there's a plan C, D, E, and F. But quite normally with Tottenham, plans are sometimes lacking, and it's more reactive rather than proactive. And one man, I know, is same as me, has had to get his head around the last 24 hours. He's gone out and played a bit of footy and come back. Ashmatic's back in the building. One of the most charismatic people I know. But even for him, bless you, it's this is a lot to get our head around, right, Ash? And we've got a lot to discuss in terms of what is coming next for Tottenham in these final 10 days of this window.
Listen, this club, what can I say? This club. Oh man, boy, I've had hardly any sleep. I'll be honest. I've been absolutely rattled. I'm pretty sure there's lots of Spurs fans like myself that can relate, that probably work with a lot of the opposing, I call them the ops. I've had to play a lot of football with them. So I've been kicked and punched, let's put it that way. But I'm still here standing and we move, man. That's what we do. We're Spurs, we move, man.
Yeah, we do.
Up the lads, up the boys. Come on, you Spurs. Let's go.
Like I say, 10 days left for this transfer window to Tottenham to try and pull some quite big rabbits out of the hat and rescue at what times look like quite a concerning, as I've mentioned, a window where Thomas Frank may feel in certain parts he's been let down. Two high-profile transfers failed this summer, and Tottenham have 10 days to show the manager they're going to back him. And we'll give you an overview of where we are on this transfer window. But I think the most important thing to tell you right now is that news was breaking in this last 24 hours that Thomas Frank is absolutely adamant. He doesn't want one. He wants two number 10s by the end of the transfer window. And that's on the back of the news, as you are well aware out there, that James Maddison is out for the majority of the season. And we now have had news in this last 24 hours that Dejan Kulusevski is expected to be out until the turn of the year. So it's a big, big body blow for Tottenham. Two of their most creative players, two of the players that play at number 10, both out for quite considerable parts of this season. And on this show, of course, we'll be discussing what players Tottenham are looking at and what deals they're trying to do between now and the end of the window to try and give Thomas Frank the best possible chance to succeed. Look, if it was for the very, very first time, like I say, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we are across all major audio platforms. If you could be so kind when you come in to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this out to a wide range Spurs audience, we'd be greatly appreciated that. Same, of course, for Ash over at Spurs Kings TV, same for Brian at Tottenham on Tour, and obviously you can find Connor on X, that's growing daily for him, Levynomics 1882. Let's give you a roundup of what we understand Tottenham are trying to do in these last 10 days of this transfer window. And that starts with Man City winger Savinho. We understand at the time of recording this show, Tottenham have had new contacts over a deal for the Man City winger. someone in Man City's hierarchy is firmly pushing to keep the player. We understand that person who is trying to keep that player is Ferran Serrano, somebody quite high up at Man City, who we understand is at the moment the deal blocker in this. Tottenham are still pushing and are absolutely insistent they want to do a deal for the Brazilian winger. And crucially, Tottenham do hope that they are going to be in a position where the representatives of the player are going to be at the game at the weekend to try and accelerate those negotiations. The key things here to know is that Thomas Frank believes this would be a perfect signing for Tottenham. He's in love with the player and really wants him. And the most critical point of this all, the player is keen on the move. We know Tottenham to date at the moment have been unwilling to meet Manchester City's valuation, which is led to believe around the 69 million, 70 million figure. This may not be, if Tottenham get it over the line, a club record deal for the football club. As we understand, City are looking for a fee in the region of 80 million to get this deal done. Of course, look, as the window ticks down, that may change. We're also hearing reports Tottenham have made an approach now for Tyler Dibling. Of course, a player that has been on Tottenham's radar for quite a number of years. We understand Everton were at one point in the day in advanced talks for the player. That seemingly has been put on hold following Tottenham's late interest in the Southampton player. And it's one that I say that will be kept an eye on given Tottenham's long-standing interest of the player. We also understand, as I brought to you, that Tottenham aren't looking for one. They're looking for maybe two number 10s between now and the end of the window. How likely they get both, got to be honest with you, is going to be tough. We understand on that shortlist Tottenham are looking at is the midfielder Maguez Akliouche of AS Monaco, a player that Spurs have had their eye on for quite a considerable part of this window, but are yet to move. What we do understand as things are at the moment, and this of course can change at any point, Tottenham are set to put a bid in imminently, we understand, for Nico Paz. That is the news coming through to us, that Tottenham are eyeing up a move for Nico Paz, and he's being considered the most achievable transfer with more movement expected over this next 24, 48 hours. So again, we're going to have to see how that news does develop. And I am going to ask the boys on this to actually begin with the fact that we do understand Thomas Frank is really, really keen on a reunion with Yoane Wissa, who, as many people will know out there, has gone on strike at Brentford. And as far as deleting all of his footage of his time at Brentford off his Instagram, where he wants this move to Newcastle United, some at this point would find it crazy maybe that Tottenham are going in for him. And there were suggestions, or more than suggestions, that Tottenham were offering Richarlison yesterday in a bid to try and save the Eberechi Eze deal. We're going to give you the fallout to that and more. But if I just reflect on the boys, if I come to you first, Con, it has been a crazy last 24 hours. How do you feel going into the final 10 days of this window where we're going to discuss really what is left for Tottenham to try and rescue it?
Not very good is the is the short answer. I think it's been a pretty diabolical window. I think the individual signings of Kudus and Paulino are good, and I think everyone would agree they're very, very good acquisitions and established players, which is what we've all been asking for. But I think, I've been saying this quite consistently for a few weeks. I think this window is very systemic of a ENIC window, whereby there's been no clear, cohesive strategy again. I think, if you look at the context of the fact that we finished 17th last season, obviously that's going to improve with having Frank, I think, over Ange, but we did finish 17th last season. We got the golden ticket of Champions League money still through the Europa League win. And we're now a number of years into having all of the stadium revenue coming in. And you've hired a brand new manager who wants to implement new tactics, new systems, etc. I think to give Frank what you have given him so far is almost nothing short of a disgrace. There's another manager that we're leaving with his hands tied behind his back. In terms of spend, even if you include Danso and Tel, who obviously were part of the squad last year, but I'll be generous and include them because financially you should. We've spent the ninth most. Sunderland have spent more than us Nottingham Forest have spent more than us. Burnley have almost spent as much as us. So as it stands right now, with 10 days or so left, there is a huge amount of work to do. And I think the problem is now, is given what's happened with both the Eze saga and the Gibbs-White saga, Maddison's ACL, and the fact that you're coming into the end of the window, other clubs know that we're desperate, and they can therefore use that leverage over us as well. And so, yeah, I'm really concerned with the window, really concerned with where we go from here. And unfortunately, I think the signs with Frank so far have been really positive, but it just looks like another manager that's going to be let down by this ownership.
If I can come over to you, Brian, I think we all understand that these next 10 days are going to maybe shape initially what Tottenham's start of the season looks like. It's that big, of course. We all know there's a lot of work to do. We are looking at the case where, at the moment, we've only brought in one senior permanent player in Mohamed Kudus. Of course, Tottenham could go on to make that Polina deal permanent if, of course, he has a good season. But in terms of backing Thomas Frank, when you consider what Ange was given in that first season when he came, the likes of Bruno Vicario, Mickey van der Ven, James Maddison, there's no doubt at the moment Frank is being left massively short. And also we have to bring in that, again, the optics to it of the fact that not only did Tottenham foul in 2 high-profile transfer moves, they allegedly tried to include a player in a deal that was high of confidence scoring a brace at the weekend in Richarlison, to even then try and include him in a move. So what does the optics look like for that? And how much does that also knock the confidence of him? We'll be coming on to Richarlison. We have got an update on his future as well. But Brian, as we've said, it's a massive 10 days for the football club, massive 10 days for Thomas Frank to get the tools he will need. Oh, massive. I mean, all I can say is massive. Can they try and rescue this window, in your opinion? Can they do that?
Well, they can. They can rescue it. It's will they rescue it? That's the very big question. I have to say, I'm hoping those Richarlison rumours that we heard yesterday were just that, because if they were genuine, then it just shows what a mess we are in the first place, because he's been the guy amongst the goals. He's had 2 stellar performances in PSG and obviously at Burnley. And he looked incredible. Certainly the best we've seen. Yes, it's only 2 games. But that he can't be. We would have been left with a semi-fit Solanke. And obviously we'll talk about Wissa, but Wissa wants Newcastle. So we could have been with 1 striker. I will say, when Connor was saying it didn't look like we had a plan, I actually thought for once to begin with, it looked like we did actually have a plan, because we bought in Kudus.
Yeah.
It then looked like we were going to sort the midfield out with Gibbs-White.
Yep.
And then, obviously, Tottenham drama. Then it looked like Eze, and it looked like we were going in and getting established players ready for Champions League, ready for Premier League, which is something that we've never done for ages. We normally get one from the Premier League and then go all around the houses trying to see what we can do. And it looked like it, but like Connor said, it's all unravelled. It's back to where we were. We don't know what we want. You said about players from last season. We've lost Sonny as well. Yeah. We've lost our captain. Yeah. We've lost 20 goal contributions. We've lost the marquee, if you want to call it that, player, the symbol of the club, and we haven't replaced it. The injuries, like you said, to both Kulusevski, and with the news it's going to be longer than anyone thought and into the new year, as well as Maddison. And we've known these 2 injuries for 2 weeks, and we haven't replaced them, and a certain club down the road got an injury and replaced it in a day. That's a plan of action. Like Connor said, it looked like the plan that they had was working, but somehow we couldn't get it over the line. And now we are scattergun, aren't we? We are a complete scattergun.
I think that really represents what the last 24 hours look like in terms of the amount of names that have come out of the PR gun, really, of what Tottenham are trying to do. And I mean, Ash, you're quite good at trying to seeing through the cracks of the names that we're going to be talking about. But I know for you, you said off air, if you don't mind me saying that, it's been difficult to quite get your head around the last 24 hours. I mean, look, we're Spurs fans. We're used to disappointment. We're used to being let down because we've had so many years of it, really. Especially under this ownership, you go back and look at the last 25 years, the amount of high-profile deals that, for whatever reason, one or another, that have not got over the line. So I just think, you can stomach another high-profile one falling through. What you can't stomach is where that high-profile player is going and the nature of how that then has the knock-on effect to us as fans, where you look at, as Brian said there, what these next 10 days look like, and you want to avoid it being a scattergun because everybody knows you've got a minimum 60 million in your pocket you are trying to put on a number 10. And as I've said, just to be very, very clear, our understanding is, and what is being said out to the media, is Thomas Frank didn't want one number 10. He wanted two. He wanted two number 10. So how realistic is that to achieve between now and the end of the window, given we know Spurs are keen on a winger? There were talk, of course, they wanted to bring in a centre-back in Pierre and Hincapi. That has now gone quiet, we understand, despite appreciation from Tottenham. As things stand, they are not following up that move for Hincapi. I mean, just on this point, Ash, can these next 10 days rescue the window and give Thomas Frank the opportunity to put Spurs in a place where they can build on last season, build on that Europa League success as a springboard? Or do you think that is not going to be allowed to be the case, given how much this last week or so has derailed us in the window?
For me, the damage has been done. Personally, for other fans, it'll be different. You know, lots of fans will be on, let's look forward. You know, Eze wanted Arsenal. He was never going to be a Tottenham player. Like, let's not go down that route. We only want players that want to play for us. I look at it slightly different because obviously we've been looking at this player since QPR days, and Chris Ramsey was looking after him, and we've been tracking him ever since, and we've been linked to Eze for a long time. It's not like we've never had a Tottenham player that supports Arsenal before work for us. At the end of the day, these are Premiership professional players, and not every player plays for the club they support. And are they as good as well? That's another question, because you might get a player that might not be so good, but he might support Spurs. Then what? So a lot of people will look at the alternatives, and there's a whole argument and debate and Prem proven. And for me, when you look at a player of his level, it's not that he's Prem proven for one season, because you could look at Dominic Solanke. Some people could argue, you know, he had one good season, and, you know, is 8 or 9 goals good enough for the season that we just had in terms of how much we paid for him? You never know. He might come good this season. So I'm not going to go down that route. Brennan Johnson, another one. You spent a lot of money on him. He had one season. He's quite young. So there's an argument there, you know, Prem proven, is it really all up to what it's scratched up to be? I look at Eze, and he's done it for 3 Premier League seasons. And I think that's the reason why it was so damaging for me, because yes, we are linked to a player in Savinho. For me, if we're going to push the ball out for him, I've got no problem with that. But the thing is, it's the goals that I'm looking at. His ability to find players, his ability to create is remarkable. But the one goal in the Premier League, and looking closer, because I took a little deeper dive to see how his shooting was, and I saw, that's what Pep was talking about in terms of his finishing. Now, when you bring an Eze, who's, for me, had a poor season, he had 16 goal contributions, 8 goals and 8 assists just in the league. But overall, he had over 24 goals in his career last season. So that's quite a bit. Helped them with massive goals, key moments, big game player. That, for me, compensates for a Savinho deal. So I'm not crazily mad if we overpay on Savinho and we get an Eze. But when you take out the goals of an Eze and you play a player in that's not from this league, that may have to acclimatize, and that's also the age profile might be similar to what we did last season, it adds a layer of risk again. Do you understand? And the PR with this at the moment stinks, in my opinion, because a lot of people be like, oh, you know what? I don't want to say anyway. Do you know what I mean? For me, it's a coping mechanism, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a way of dealing with it. But the fact that he went to the boys across the road, if he went to Bayern Munich, it's one thing. But for people to call me little bro, to laugh in my face, I don't do the embarrassment very well. So for me, it was a lot. I had to hold that. But anyway, that's a separate issue. Let's just focus on Spurs. My issue really is when you're trying to go for key players, proven players, and this is why I was more rattled, is because we have a history of this taking long to negotiate those finer details. We always hear that. Add-ons, bonuses. In a match day, we make between 6 and 8 million on match day, right? And if they're asking for a fee of 6 million extra or 8 million extra, please just sort that out. Please get. And the reason why I say that is because the Morgan Gibbs White, fair enough. People could walk away from that and say, look, the club got it wrong. It was unfair on Spurs, whatnot. I get that. But when people say to you, okay, if there's another release clause for another player of a similar ilk or quality, make sure the second time you pay over the release clause. Make sure. That's what all the rival fans were telling me, laughing in my face. They were saying that. And I remember when you called me on to that last show, and me and you did a show, and I thought I was quite positive. You're like, well, it was a bit like up and down. But the only reason why I was a bit up and down is because there was that element that Arsenal could be lurking in that dark. And the club knew that. And I talk about the speed.
Yeah.
When you're doing a deal, it's about the speed of the deal for me. Do you understand? You don't have a lot of time to get things right. When you're doing these sales, when you're doing purchases, you don't have a lot, especially in football. Football, things change really quickly. And like, I know I sound like I'm talking really passionate, but like, that's how much of a burn is on me. Like, it really burns me. It really hurts me because I'm passionate about my football club. So I don't want to come across that I'm doing the most at the moment. But when you want your club to get to the next level, there were so many rival clubs that were talking to me. They were scared. They were generally thinking, oh, look, Tottenham actually might do it. Kudos on the right, Eze on the left. That combination could scare most teams in the league. And I was like, finally, we're moving away from that Spursy curse, that Spursy tag, because we won the league. We won the Europa League. For what? I saw Manchester United move so much quicker, so much more aggressive. And that's what I mean about the speed. I know they took long from Mbumo, so maybe that's a bad example, but I'm talking about the intent, the aggression. And for the people that are running at the top, do they have that same mentality? Because I feel like they're getting the same ilk and the same cut of the cloth type of people around them, which is keeping our club in this frame. And when he talked about springboard, and I remember when we first had the springboard and we're doing the Premiership now, we're doing Champions League now. I said, Rick, I want to see it. And I said, Ricky, you know what? When things go bad, that's when I want to see them come out. I don't, all this rosy talk, I'm here for it, but I want to see action when things hit the fan. Where are you? What are you telling me then? Because you're quick to come out in the transfer window. You're quick to go out on the overlap. And I said that on the overlap, I said, couldn't you have waited to release that video at the end of the window? So for me, that's my frustration. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about the Arsenal. It's not just about the Eze, because this goes back further. Do you understand? We draw out transfers. Why? We were told that Enoch put 150 in. Do you understand? We know that they knew, like what Brian said, Madison and Kulu was out. How long do they know that for? Do you understand?
Yep.
Arsenal, Kai Havertz injured within 24 hours. Boom, boom, boom. Done. People say, look, it's done on the 10th of August. They had that set up, whatever. But it doesn't matter. They had it in place. And when it was time to strike, they weren't ramping. They weren't messing about. They got down to business. That's what I call the elite mentality of a top club. That's how you act. That's how you perform. And that's what it is for me. And that's why I'm more frustrated. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like, Eze is world class and Ash is crying because we lost. No, it's deeper than that. You're not understanding.
I get it. No, we get it. No, listen, mate, I 100% agree with you that this is the problem with Tottenham, that especially in these next 10 days, I think you're spot on what you're saying, Ash. What are Tottenham going to want to be? Because they're going to have to, in my opinion, make a couple of real genuine statement signings to try and lift the mood of the fan base now. Because quite frankly, what Thomas Frank has got at his disposal is quite simply not enough to be able to compete on the four fronts that we were told that is what is to be judged on. Kind of, it is going to be a statement signing. Our understanding that one of those players that Tottenham are looking as a statement signing, and obviously Ash has had a bit of a say in there, is going to be Savinho of Manchester City. I just want to ask you where you understand things at from your perspective, because at the time of recording this show, we believe, as I mentioned at the top of it, that Spurs have had new direct contact with City over a deal for Savinho. And as things stand at the moment, we understand there is a blocker in this at the top of Man City's hierarchy that is pushing to keep the player. But at the same time, Spurs are pushing to sign him. And Spurs are insistent that they want to do a deal. As I mentioned again, really important we obviously make this very clear. Thomas Frank is absolutely in love with this player. Thomas Frank is the man that apparently has been driving this deal, that's made it clear to the Tottenham board, this is the man that I want. Spurs so far have been unwilling to meet that demand of the fee that we understand City are pricing of around 70 to 75 million. And if Tottenham are to get the player, they're going to have to look at a fee of around 80 million to get this deal done. We understand the clubs are going to reconvene once the sides meet at the weekend, in which we understand there will be representatives there of Savinho's camp too. And Tottenham want to get this deal done and remain determined to see this transfer through. Connor, for you give me your thoughts on this and whether this is the right player Spurs are targeting as a genuine statement signing. Is he worthy of a club record fee where we are now 10 days left in this window?
I like Savinho. I think he offers a real dynamism on the left. I think, City obviously played him on the right mostly, but when he had, was putting up better numbers for Girona, albeit in La Liga, that he was playing out on the left. I think, although he's young, he's certainly more established than the likes of Tel Odebert for me in terms of what he's done so far. He no doubt improves us. I think the problem is and look, I hate to come back to this. It makes me sound negative, and I promise you, in my non-Tottenham life, I'm a super positive person, right? But this club is just breaking.
We all are. I think outside Tottenham, we're quite positive people until we come back.
I know this club just breaks me down every window. But anyway, I just do not trust this ownership and Daniel Levy to get deals of this magnitude over the line. I think the types of deals that we can get over the line are when clubs are in financial dire straits, desperate to get rid of players because they need to for PSR or whatever else, or players whereby there's a market opportunity. And for me, Savio, although City or Pep would be happy to sell because that's sort of his modus operandi, that if a player's not fully committed, he's happy to sell. Obviously, someone else in the hierarchy doesn't feel the same way, it sounds like. I just don't trust that it's the sort of deal that we can get over the line. So I really struggle to get that excited. And obviously the Eze one being so recent is impacting that view even further. Look, I think the problem is now we are 10 days, as I said before, away from the end of the window. The season has already started. We're at the stage where I think you just have to accept you're going to have to overpay. Do I think Savinho is worth 80 million? No, based on what he's done so far.
One goal last season. One goal.
No, but so he's probably at that.
Yeah.
If you look at others, he's probably at that sort of 55 to 60 mark.
Agree.
But you're probably baking in some potential given he's only 21, right? So,
yep.
Look, and Ash made the point. When you're haggling over things like £5 million, right, over the length of someone's contract, that's $1 million a year. It's a rounding error for a football club of this size. Genuinely, you don't even have to think about it. One position is £3.5 million, right, in terms of league position. So, this is the problem. I think that Levy has not moved with the times of the fact that when we're going after players with clubs like Forest and Palace, they're not Forest and Palace of 10 15 years ago. They've got money now. They've got owners that have got more relative ambition than we have. Relative ambition, and they don't need to sell these players, and so they're going to make life hard. And we just need to realize that the way that football has moved is sometimes not every negotiation has to be a war that you need to win, and you have to play that long game of, do you know what, actually maybe. And I use Chelsea are a good example of this, right? One of the reasons Chelsea is so good at selling players is because they've built fantastic relationships with clubs all around Europe. Because actually, when they go into negotiations, they don't look to make every negotiation a war. So look, I think it's I'd be happy for Savinho to come in for sure, because I think we need players of quality and desperately in those attacking positions.
I think this is also one of the problematic things that we know with regards to Daniel, that not many chairmen or owners, whoever are doing the deals, want to deal with Daniel. And this is the biggest problem. I think we've found that. I would agree with you, Colin. I look at Tottenham's most recent signings, Brian, come over to you. A lot of them have been fairly opportunistic. You look at Kudus, West Ham in difficult financial need. They get that deal done. Brennan Johnson, if we take our mind back, of course. Forest were in quite dire straits, financial needs. They got the deal done. Leicester with James Maddison. Again, financial difficulties. They got the deal done. You look at the Morgan Gibbs-White situation. They obviously got win there. There was a release clause. They tried to go in for him. No, they didn't get the deal done. Savinho's a bit of a different kettle of fish, Brian, we have to say, because he hasn't got, or Man City, we understand, don't have any real genuine financial difficulties. However, Man City are looking at this thinking, if we get an offer we can't refuse and the player wants to go, then we're going to have to consider this. And I think this is the key thing that we have to say, that maybe unlike Eberechi Eze, in that we know Tottenham wasn't his first choice, all the noises we're hearing, Brian, in relation to Savinho is he very much wants to move to Tottenham, and Savinho's camp is encouraging these talks to get a deal done. Now, I just refuse to believe, Brian, that Tottenham are going to Manchester City and insisting on trying to get a deal done here if the player doesn't want the move. So on that basis, how do you understand to be the state of play on this one for you?
So first of all, like Connor just started off saying about building relationships and Chelsea getting jobs done because they build good relationships. Like you were mentioning, we've got an owner that's just burned bridges everywhere. He's burned bridges everywhere. I look at it with the £80 million fee. Let's face it, is any 21-year-old worth £80 million after one season in the Premier League? It's football's football now, and it's a seller's market. You look at it. Manchester City know now we've gone for 2 high-profile bids or players, and those bids have fallen flat. Spurs desperately need to get a high-profile signing in, and it looks like this is the high-profile. Manchester City hold all the cards with this one. I think he could be a very, very exciting player for us, especially on the left. He'll certainly add what Kudus can add on the right, and you think about Solanke or Richarlison inside. The way Thomas Frank wants to get crosses into the box and everything, he ticks all the boxes for it. Have we left it with enough time to do it? Because we have £60 million, obviously, that was there for one transfer.
Yep.
Then we messed about with it and tinkered about with Eze. Whether Arsenal win the lurking, it was always let's try and do this. Can't be meddling. We have got to act quick because nothing's going to happen before Saturday, is it? So you're looking at Sunday, Monday. We have a week to do this.
Yep.
It's like you said, Ricky. It's good to hear from his representatives who have flown in from Brazil, and he is welcoming the move. Sorry, it's a World Cup year. He wants to try and get his Brazilian, ticket to go to the States and represent his country. So a lot of players have that goal to get into the World Cup. So I think he can be a big player for us. Do we have time to get it over the line? And can you honestly see if Man City stay firm? Because like you said, we all know they don't need the money. Will Spurs actually go that high for 80 million? That's the other thing. Or will it be another, let's just keep... If you just break this down quickly, it's a 12-week window. We wasted 2 weeks sacking Edge, 2 weeks hiring Frank, 3 weeks with Gibbs White, a week and a half. We've wasted about nine and plus weeks of this window.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
By doing things one at a time. And now, if we're going to accelerate this one, Spurs can't mess about. Let's just say it is 80, 75 million. Don't try and say installments, or if Man City say you get him for this, you have to save this season. You've got to do it.
You've got to pay the money now. You've got to start at some point acting like a big club, right? You have to. Ash, coming to you on the point of Savinho, we understand Tottenham have increased their bid to around the 69 million mark after Eze's decision to favour the move to Arsenal. As I have said, throughout the show, the players' agents are very now close to this. and it's being described as difficult, complicated, and there is at least one important person who we understand to be Ferran Serrano on that Man City board that is blocking this move and pushing to keep him. But Spurs want to carry on trying, and they have no intention as things stand of giving up. They want to bring the player to Tottenham. And again, I keep reiterating this. The difference maybe in this one, in comparison to the Eze deal, is that Savinho has wanted this Tottenham move. We understand he has been driving it as much as Thomas Frank has been at the other end. And as I keep on saying, Thomas Frank is reportedly in love with the player, really wants this to get done. As you said earlier about the stats and looking into the player as a whole, is he worth, Savinho, a club record fee in the region of what will be around 75, 80 million to get this deal done, to bring him from the Etihad to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Ash?
I think at the moment it's the seller's market, meaning that the Man City have the leverage. They've got the power at the moment, and they know that Tottenham are in a situation where we've got a bid rejected by, we lost out on Eze, basically. And so because we want their player, they're in no position that they need to sell. They can keep hold of him. And because of the relationship that we have with Man City, he's not really there. We don't really have that relationship. And I think that's why the agents from Brazil were brought in to get the deal over the line. But still, we've got people at the top of City and the CEO in Ferran. He's the one that's holding the cards at the moment. And unfortunately for us, it's a waiting game. And that's the thing. Spurs have to know when to walk away from a deal, because if we don't know when to walk away and we stay looking and we don't pull the trigger, or they don't offer us a fee that we think is worth going for, then we waste more time and we miss out on other targets. So that's the gamble that we're taking. And I'm thinking, is the reason why the Wissa rumors are being brought up, is that maybe because Frank's maybe looking at, we need goals in this team. He wants to get more goals. Vissa's quite versatile in that he can play on the left, or he can play as a striker. He's played across the front three before for Brentford, played in different formations. He knows Frank. Frank wants that player, and the player likes Frank. Maybe that's the reason why. I know from what I've read, Newcastle are in for him, but they're also in for Strand Larson, I believe, of Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then maybe there is a deal to be done where we might go for both. Who knows? We could go for maybe he's looking at Savinho, the youth, and the here and now in Wissa. We combine it, because I honestly feel like the club have got some making up to do in terms of
after this summer with Gibbs White falling through and then Eze falling through. They are under. I mean, look, when we say they're under serious pressure, they should, everyone should be putting them under serious pressure to some degree, but we need to see genuine statements in these next couple of days. We have got to move on, guys, but gut feeling quickly on Savinho. Going to go round the table. Ash, we'll start with you because we finished off with you there. Savinho, yes or no? Will Savinho, in your opinion, be a Tottenham player between now and the end of the window, Ash? Will we get this done?
I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say yes.
Brian, yes or no? Savinho, will he be a Spurs player?
No. After the last two disasters, my confidence has gone nope.
Okay, Con, yes or no? Will Savinho be a Tottenham player? No. Okay, there. We're split. I have to say to you, I'm very reluctant to give this a yes. I just feel City being City and the way they've been reluctantly not wanting to sell the player and the fee involved here, I question whether Tottenham will do it. So for now, I will also say no. Look, we're going to squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We've got over 10,500 of you that are watching the show live. Thank you so much for staying up for a very, very late edition of Last Word on Spurs. I'm joined by the wonderful Connor over at Levynomics 1882. Please give him a like and a follow on X. We're seeing him across a lot of the YouTube sphere. He's being pulled here, there, and everywhere. Like he says, like a lot of us out there, we are very positive people in our personal lives. When it comes to Tottenham, unfortunately, that's a different story. I'm also joined by Ash over at Spurs Kings TV. Please make sure you go and give Ash a follow. Like I say, great content over there. Real deep dive analysis into players, into games. You ain't going to want to miss a trick. And we're joined by the brilliant Brian Dagul over at Tottenham on Tour. Listen, we have got to turn our attention, of course, to other areas. But if you can, guys, for us, if you please can give the show a like, if you can give it a subscribe, push it out to a wide range Spurs audience, we would greatly appreciate it. As I said at the start of this show, our understanding is Thomas Frank does not want one number 10. He wants two. And given we are less than 10 days away from the window coming to an end, how are Tottenham going to find one number 10 given they can't have even got two so far over the line? We understand, however, though, Tottenham are making a real push for Nico Paz to be one of those number 10s that the club are looking to bring in between now and the remainder of this transfer window. Paz has made 35 appearances last season, scoring 6 goals, contributing 9 assists as Como finished 10th. Born in Tenerife, he started his career in the local academies before moving to Real Madrid, famed in La Flipka back in 2016. It is worth noting that Real retain an approximate 10.5 million buyback clause for the youngster. And that's not just over one season, that's over a remaining couple of seasons. So it is worth noting that if Tottenham do sign the player, Real Madrid do have that opportunity to bring him back over the course of the next few seasons. If you are worried about that, a reminder that Sergio Reguilon, when he came to Tottenham, also had a buyback clause. But obviously, due to Reguilon's ability, that never was quite a problem. We'll start, if we can, Con, with you in relation to Nico Paz. He's seen as an elegant player, one that is more of a plays at his own pace game. Can he work in the Premier League? Again, player that hasn't had any Premier League experience, unlike, of course, Eberici Eze and Morgan Gibbs-White. Tell me how you feel about this player potentially pulling on a Tottenham shirt if we can get him over the line between now and the end of the window, Con.
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen of him, I like. He's young, and obviously doesn't, as you just made the point, he's not Prem proven. He's not quite as established as, Eze, who obviously we were linked with for the 10 position, and Gibbs White before that. But what I've seen of him is impressive. I think, without repeating it, because it seems to be the way with every deal, I think it's a difficult deal to do, to be honest, because I think you've got that complication of the Real Madrid piece that you just mentioned, but also, Como have got some of the wealthiest owners in football as well, right? They're owned by super wealthy individuals from Indonesia. So, they're going to be asking for big money. And again, it comes back to this point around, with 10 days left, and similarly there, it's hard to do these deals when you don't when these clubs don't have a lot of time to find replacements, right? So I think it's a player at this point. We're getting to the stage where it's sort of, we just desperately need to get a 10, at least 110 through the door because of this point. Maddison is obviously out for the season. There's a chance he's never going to be the same player again. Kulusevski, if the reports are true, who I don't think is a completely natural 10 anyway, but obviously can play there. He's not going to be back until the new year, and then how long does it take for him to get fit? So we just desperately need a 10 at this point, and I think the problem is as days and days continue to pass, it becomes harder and harder to get one in.
Ash, just comes to you. You've not made any, how can I put this? I know you've made some genuine excitement about the player whenever you've come on the show to talk about Nico Paz. Now he becomes a real, genuine, serious target for Tottenham between now and the end of this transfer window. How confident are you if Tottenham were to get him in, he can step up to not only the Premier League pace, but be a player that can really make a difference for this squad? Because this is another thing now that's going to be happening. Any player Tottenham bring in, they're going to be under serious pressure to perform. And they're going to have a real character about them to be able to come into a team where they're going to be expected to contribute not just goals, but assists as well. Is Nico Paz at the age of what he is, a young, forgive me, I think 21-year-old, he might be less than that, forgive me, young player, 21-year-old, I think he is. A lot of pressure for a youngster. Can he handle that, Ash, if Tottenham were to bring him in?
Well, he's coming from Real Madrid. He's a Real Madrid player.
Yeah.
And he's gone down to Como under the tutelage of Fabregas, who was also a gifted young midfielder. and he's come through as one of Serie A's most gifted young players of the season. What I can say about him is physically he's there, and he has got a good mentality. Now, if you're looking at Serie A compared to the Premier League, it's not as fast as the Premier League, in my opinion. And so it's the speed that he's going to have to adjust to. And whether he can make that step up quick enough, that's the question mark. How long will it take him to adjust? Because we need to get players that are hitting the ground running now. And as you said, he's young, and we've got quite a lot of young players in already. But he does have excellent vision, similar to like a Kulusevski in terms of the spaces he picks up in that kind of pocket in the midfield, kind of drifts off to the right. Technically, really good control with the ball, close control. Sorry. But when it comes to passing, I think that's what stands out more than anything. He has had some goals where he shoots outside the box, so that will excite fans. And he's got different types of finishes. But more than anything, he's a player that can dictate the flow of the game. And I think that's what a lot of fans want. Someone that can slow the game down, speed the game up. But he looks really elegant on the ball as well. When he's carrying that ball forward, looks very aesthetically pleasing, very smooth on the ball. And yeah, so this is a player that Madrid, obviously they've got 30%, was it 50% or 30%? I think it's 30% buyback on the and any sell-on fee.
Yep.
So I think that's the reason why the deal isn't as straightforward. So we wouldn't just be buying off Como. We'd have to agree a fee with both them and Madrid would be taking a large portion of that fee. But the reason that is because Real Madrid didn't have any intention of getting rid of that player. They wanted to see how he did at Como. He's doing well, and they had an intention of bringing him back. But we know that, Real Madrid, they're littered with talent. Jude Bellingham's up there. They've got this guy called Ardagula, who's like 21 years old as well. So their midfield is stacked right now, and there's other senior players as well. But yeah, if he was to come to Tottenham, it would be a big coup for Spurs, in my opinion. But I think it's just whether he can make that transition quick enough. That's the question mark, because that the Liga, even at Serie A, you get more time on the ball to kind of get your head up, and they're more of a culture. Because we're more aggressive, fast ball carriers. That's how I kind of think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, let's go to you, Brian, on him. He earned the Serie A Young Player of the Year award in Italy last season. The 20-year-old then won his first Argentina cap against Bolivia in October 2024, after setting up the legendary Lionel Messi, receiving acclaim once more. Gut feeling, Brian, this is a player that, again, as we've discussed, hasn't got Premier League experience, is understood to have a really bright, exciting future ahead of him. As Ash said, has been part of course, Real Madrid's academy, really thought of highly. Gut feeling, is this the right man that will be coming in as a genuine number 10 that the fans are going to be relying on to provide goals, provide assists, and it's going to be front eye and centre of everybody in arguably one of the most toughest leagues in the world, the Premier League? Can he do this, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, when it comes to things like this, I always make sure I listen to the person next to me and his in-depth details and everything that he does on his channel. I have had a look at him. I didn't know a lot about him before the links materialized, but I do like the type of player he is. I do think there is a real player in there, but sending him into the Premier League and making him front and centre, that's the issue. Some of these players come in, like Connor mentioned, the person that's coaching him at the moment, Cesc Fabregas, came into this Premier League and blew it away. Looked young and slight. Look at him. Rooney, there's young players that can come in and tear this Premier League apart. I love that he's got a wand of a left foot. I love that he's his technique and first touch is brilliant. He's got some incredible creativity. We've all seen the YouTube compilations with his showboating, and you can see that. I think this could be a very, very promising player. Very, very promising player. Do I think he has the credentials to literally, like you said, shoulder leading the line or being that creative spark in the Premier League straight away? That I don't know. If an experience, if a Maddison was fit or a Kulusevski was fit or the other number 10 we signed in was an experienced one,
and you could
he'd be ideal. He'd be Yeah, he would have been like we've got with Paulinho for Archie Gray and the other youngsters coming through. If there was another one like that for Paz, I would love. If we signed him, I'd be happy. Put it that way. But I think we need a more experienced one alongside him. But he looks a very exciting player.
Okay, well, let's talk about the alternative to him. I say alternative, that I keep on saying. We understand Thomas Frank doesn't want one, but wants 2 number 10s before the end of this window. The other player that's been mentioned, Con, to come back round to you, is that of the AS Monaco attacking midfielder, Mahes Akliouche. I know, again, Ash has been familiar with this player in terms of his qualities and what he can bring. It's a player that Spurs have been keeping an eye on for the majority of this window. He's been a key member of Monaco's first team squad. It must be said they would prefer to keep him, but they are acknowledging that he is being closely studied by some of the biggest clubs out there in Europe, Tottenham being one of them. He's already a French international under 21. His reputation has continued to grow across the past 2 seasons in Europe with Monaco as well. Bagged 7 goals, 12 assists across all comps last season. Those figures really underline his effectiveness. He can operate in several roles. He's often deployed as an attacking midfielder, but also thrives out wide when used on the right flank. He likes to cut inside onto his stronger left foot. His movement awareness allows him to really exploit those gaps behind opposition defences. This player, do you get more of a feeling for this one over Paz, or is it, again, similar feeling for you, Paz, between Akliouche? Is there much difference for you on this?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the thing with Akliouche is he has had a couple of seasons at least, whereas with Paz it's sort of one senior season, isn't it? I think I wasn't sold on this when it was. I think when we were first rumoured to be linked with him, it was sort of put forward as a potential alternative to Savinho, because I didn't quite get how that was the case. You know, Savinho being a very sort of direct, pacey left wing. I think actually Akliouche in what I've seen of him is more similar to an Eze, so I get it now as an Eze alternative, although he's right-sided mostly and number 10, whereas obviously Eze is playing the 10 or out left. Look, I think again, it's one of those. He looks good from what you've seen. You have that question mark as to whether he can make the transition to the Prem, but I think Ash touched on it earlier. We've signed players before, that have had good seasons in the Prem, and maybe it hasn't quite worked out for us, right? So every signing has some risk attached to it. I think this player is clearly a player with a lot of quality, and it would, at this stage again, it comes back to the same point. We need desperately bodies in the door in that position, and these are the types of deals and the types of clubs you think we can sign players from.
Bodies or quality, though, Con? That's the question.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem. I think you're sort of coming down those tiers of players now, aren't you? In terms of if you sort of say, for us, obviously we were never going to be in the conversation for the very, very top tier, but for us, Gibbs White and Eze is sort of that top tier, and with Prem proven establishment, and then we're in that sort of next level of signings with potentially a bit more risk, which is why we're having this conversation about the likes of Akliouche and Paz. But what I think you can't dispute is their technical quality, at least.
Are you surprised, before I bring Ash in, are you surprised that we haven't heard suggestions that Tottenham might go back in for Harvey Elliott? Are you surprised by that, Con, or not really?
Yeah, that one seems to have gone a bit quiet. Again, I think that's another one. I quite like Elliott, but it's another one with risk. Can he step up and be the main man that we sort of would need him to be? And similarly for me, Elliott can play in the 10, but he's also a bit of an 8 as well. But yeah, that one seems to have gone very quiet. But similar, I mean, 50 million. When people were disputing whether we should pay 60 million plus 8 million and add-ons for Eze and just trigger the release clause, which would have then meant that perhaps Arsenal couldn't have come back in for him. When that was the conversation, if in a world for me where Harvey Elliott is 50 million, Eze is absolutely 60 plus 8 in add-ons.
Yeah, agree. Ash, coming over to you. Look, you again have spoke quite wizardry about Akliouche. I think Colin's giving me the probably correct pronunciation. I'm butchering the guy's name. Please forgive me out there. Ash, you know, I think when we last had you on, you described him as being an excellent dribbler who carries the ball forward and beats opponents in one-on-one situations. I know you wanted to add that his vision and range of passing adds another dimension, but we also did discuss that this deal would not be straightforward to do, but given his creativity and his versatility, it makes him a target potentially worth chasing. We are hearing suggestions that they're not desperate to sell the player. How high up, actually, for you on your pecking order should this player be?
Well, you've got Paz, who's 20 years old.
Yep.
And he's having his breakout season. And then you've got Akliouche, who's 23, who's come from Monaco's academy. And he's had 2 to 3 seasons, also played in Champions League. He's played against teams like Barcelona. He played against Aston Villa. And I forget the other team he played against in the Champions League, but he had decent to very good performances against those teams. So you often judge players if they can do it in Champions League. That'd be a good barometer if they can do it in the Premier League. And Aston Villa would be a team I would consider as one of our closer rivals in terms of like where they are on the table, if that makes sense. And obviously he had a good game against them. So, but with Nico Paz, and this is why it's not easy, the physicality of him is a lot more than Akliouche. In fact, I think he slightly edges him in terms of dribbling. Although when you do watch Akliouche, for me, he's more exciting because he's got a different frame, like a kind of Mahrez type of frame, where he's got a burst of acceleration. He can get away from his play a little bit more. So both of them are very, very good players. There's not much in them. In fact, if I'm going through the actual numbers, Akliouche has slightly more assists, and Nico Paz has a goal more. But that's just in the league stats. Overall, there's not much in it in terms of like overall goals and overall assists. They're both very creative. When I look at Nico Paz in terms of like dribble completions, he's very close to Morgan Rogers. A lot of people will be excited about that. I've compared some of their stats. Where Morgan Rogers has got slightly higher output in terms of goals, but in terms of like shots per 90, in terms of like placement, where to be on the pitch, in terms of actual assists, like expected assists, like where he's going to be, dribbling, very close to Morgan Rogers as well. Duels, like to win the ball back, close to Morgan Rogers. So this is a guy that's knocking on the door with a player that's worth 80 million to Aston Villa, which we're not going to pay anything near. And a lot of teams are looking at Paz as the next one to blow, like in terms of this guy's going to be hot. Yeah. But saying that Akliouche has been linked to PSG, do you know what I mean?
He has been.
Bayern Munich were looking at him at one point. And there were teams like, I think, was it Liverpool also looking at him? Newcastle closely monitoring him as well. I know Newcastle were definitely looking at him because they're looking for a number 10. And I think that's the reason why they were going for, they lost out, on João Pedro, who can also play as a striker, but also number 10. But yeah, that's the type of level some of these players are being linked with. So, yeah, it's not bad to be linked with these type of players. These guys are really up and coming. But I would say, like I said, Akliouche has got more experience. That's what it comes down to.
I think, it's great that these players have got real genuine potential, as I think Yoane kind of touched upon. Brian, the thing that I think the fans will be asking right now is, on the back of missing out on 2 high-profile deals in the nature of Gibbs White and, of course, recently Eberechi Eze.
Yep.
People don't want an up-and-coming player. They want a player that's going to come in and be ready to go in that first team and make a direct impact on the Premier League and our Champions League games. That either of those 2 players for you move that needle and give you genuine confidence that they're going to come in and make a real difference in this league and in this Tottenham side. Because I think the genuine feeling was that when we were linked with Eze and certainly linked with Morgan Gibbs White, these are 2 players that were going to come in and impact the first team now. And that's exactly what we need to do in these last 10 days of the window. Sign players that are going to directly make an impact in that first team.
Yeah, I mean, these 2, both Akliouche and Paz, they're teams for tomorrow, aren't they? They're not for the right now. we've got to remember as well, with Thomas Frank, he's going into Europe for the first time, 4 competitions, first time, playing twice a week, first time. And you would have wanted him to have a settled squad, experienced squad, ready to do battle on all 4 tournaments. Do I think these two move the needle? Not when we were thinking, if we were saying Eze or Gibbs White are needle movers, well, these two aren't there. Potentially they could be. Are they needle movers right now? Do we see them fitting in Champions League teams for other teams right now? Can't see it, and they've probably got the quality around them. We need to do more. Don't get me wrong, both these players are very exciting.
Yeah, they're
but it's that word potential again, Ricky.
That word potential, and we've had, no disrespect, windows, the last few windows of that word potential. And I think, Brian, like you said there, I don't think we can keep using this word potential. We need players that are going to come in and hit that first team running. And I'm going to stick with Brian a second. Look, we are going to quickly just squeeze in our next break of the show for our listeners and audio. Like I said, we understand Tottenham want 2 number 10s before this window comes to an end. And we obviously have got 10 days left. And that news that we brought you at the top of the show, that we will reiterate to you if you are unaware, we have heard that news in the last few hours that Dejan Kulusevski is going to be out until the turn of the year. That is why Tottenham, again, are panicking about not having that creative nature of a midfield number 10. And on top of the news, of course, we know already, James Maddison is going to miss the majority of this season. We have got over nearly 12,500 of you watching us live. Thank you so much for incredible support for the show. I'm joined by Connor at Levynomics 1882. I'm joined by Asher at Spurs Kings TV. Please go and give them a like and subscribe. Please go give Brian a like and subscribe over at Tottenham on Tour. Please keep liking the show. Please keep subscribing to Last Word on Spurs. Guys, let's bring an update in terms of one player that maybe some were looking at with bemusement in this last 48 hours that we thought we might have lost. And I will stick with you, Brian, on this because it is fascinating, the whole thing around Richarlison, because what we understand is Tottenham at the 11th hour in trying to rescue the deal for Eberechi Eze were prepared, we understand, to give Richarlison or make Richarlison part of that deal to Crystal Palace in a bid to rescue them pushing Eze to Tottenham, not to Arsenal. Now, we have had a lot of different conjecture of this from Spanish reports, Brazilian reports. Their understanding is that Richarlison will definitely not be leaving Tottenham this summer. Thomas Frank is counting on the Brazilian to be a big part in the project. And I think, as Connor said as we open the show here, Bri, to stick with you, he described him as phenomenal in that game against PSG. He also described him as top in that game against Burnley, where, of course, included that world-class second goal as part of a brace that helped Tottenham to a 3-0 win. How is Richarlison feeling right now about the fact that potentially he was pushed in the middle of a swap deal that maybe he didn't even see coming? How does the player react to that on the back of a day where we lost out on a high-profile signing and we tried to push one of our current players to a club and that fell through, Brian?
Yeah, Ricky, I have to say, I think this Richarlison story was absolute nonsense. In all honesty, like you said, Thomas Frank has waxed lyrical about him. Thomas Frank at the beginning of the season even said, listen, we need to give him a week extra when we played Reading. He's not ready. We are going to make sure we take it step by step with him because we know Frank knows how important he deems him. And he has shown it, hasn't he? Since he's come back in these 2 games that have mattered, he has been brilliant. His first touch has improved. His appetite seems to improve. We've needed support around him and giving him quality, and people like Kudus giving him balls like he's thrived on. And he's absolutely thriving on it. I think this was absolutely nonsense and nothing was going to happen with this. But you've got to see, it looks ridiculous, doesn't it? The optics of this, the one time that Richarlison is settling in and actually firing at Spurs, a rumour comes out that we're trying to finance a deal to get Eze by getting him out. I think that was the biggest nonsense story in a transfer part of the summer. I think it's absolute nonsense. Frank wants him. I think Frank sees him currently as the number 1 striker, doesn't he? Solanke's not up to par. And I think it's Richarlison's shirt to have and for Solanke to try and get back. And if Richarlison carries on and stays fit, he scores goals.
Do you know what, Brian? It's interesting. I'm not sure if I agree with you on it, only because, coming over to you, Richarlison, in his best ever Premier League season, I think has only scored either 12 or 13 goals.
Yep.
And he's been with us, Con, I think, what now, 2, 3, is it 4 seasons of Richarlison? It feels like it's been longer than what it has done. He, of course, had that great purple patch middle of last season where I think he scored 8 in the last 10. What we do know is if Brian, basically, like you're saying now, I know you discrediting it, you're not believing it, which is absolutely fine. Yep. If in the hypothetical nature of it, Con, Tottenham were looking to move Richarlison on, the understanding being reported is that Thomas Frank really wants a reunion with Yoane Wissa, who we understand at the moment has been subject of a 40 million bid from Newcastle that has been turned down. And this is going to take another fresh turn in the last 24 hours. We know that Wissa has been pushing to leave Brentford since leaving their pre-season camp in Portugal last month. He has since that point now removed any association with Brentford away from any of his personal profile. He stripped his Instagram of Brentford. You wouldn't even know he was a Brentford player. He's deleted all of his montages, his video memories. That is all gone with a black picture as his screen profile. Therefore, kind of really pushing the narrative. He wants to move. He is on strike. He obviously worked with Thomas Frank before. Big fan of the player. Got probably his best ever numbers out of him last season. 19 non-penalty goals, just to be very, very clear. So not one penalty in those 19 goals. Do you share Brian's view, Connor, that Richarlison, that was a nonsense rumour and there is no link at all towards Thomas Frank looking to bring in Yoane Wissa as a direct alternative to Richarlison? What's your gauge on that for you?
Yeah, look, I mean, with Richarlison, I've been hugely critical of him for the reasons that you set out at the start of your monologue there, Ricky, in terms of, I think availability has obviously been a huge issue. And I was absolutely open to the club looking to replace Richarlison with another striker this summer. I think, I always thought that the club wouldn't move huge on a striker to be first choice necessarily, because I thought that they would give Solanke another year, given they only signed him last season, even though I personally am not sure that Solanke is fit for purpose for what we all as fans want the club to achieve. So, but with Richarlison, I mean, I have to give credit where it's due. I think in both the PSG game and the Burnley game, he was brilliant. And again, this just comes back, coming full circle back to my point of sort of strategy and planning and being organised and going into a window with a clear, cohesive plan. If at the start of the window, the decision was made, look, Richarlison, you're not going to get an opportunity at Tottenham. You're not our man. Go and find yourself another club. And we're happy to, we're willing to accept whatever we can get for you. And Wissa is the man you want to target, or whoever else is. Then I was open to that. But coming into, again, 10 days to go, you're already, if this rumour is true, and I'm with Brian on this specific rumour, I think it was nonsense. But if it was true, it's already a deal you can't get over the line because you're messing around too much. And then suddenly you want to throw in another player into the mix who then has to agree his own specific terms and then try and get Wissa on top of that. The whole thing is just an absolute shambles as usual. So for me, I think I can't see it. I think with Wissa as well, I have to say there's been a lot of people critical of Isak and the way that Isak has held himself this summer with the Newcastle move. But Wissa is effectively doing the same thing, right?
Oh, he is. Of course he is. Yeah, of course.
He's gone on strike. He's had, one very good season, one good-ish season the season before. He's coming up to 29. 40 million plus is a lot of money for a 29-year-old in my view. So who, as I say, has only really had one top season. So yeah, look, that being said, I do think he's better than Richarlison. But I just can't see it. Again, it comes back to this 10 days left point. I can't see this move happening at this point, and I suspect he'll end up at Newcastle.
Okay. I mean, Ash, do you agree with the boys there? Do you discredit that with regards to Richarlison moving on this summer as well? And Wissa, do you see his only destination being Newcastle if he needs to leave Brentford? Give me your thoughts on those couple of stories.
Yeah, I think Richie stays. I think even the beginning stages, the early murmurs that Frank really liked Richarlison. He had a plan for him. He wanted to work with him. And yeah, that was my initial thought. And so obviously he started off well. I can't see no other way or any other possibility that Richarlison leaves a Champions League club in a World Cup year. It's just that's literally the end. Case closed. Wissa, obviously, him and Frank have history, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's something in it. Do you know what I mean? Whether it will happen is a complete different story. Newcastle are still linked with him. He did say, you know, from what I read, that he wanted Newcastle. So, yeah. But as I said before, they're also looking at Strad Larson. That link has been very strong of late.
Yeah.
And I know that's a player they like. But will Wolverhampton sell to Newcastle?
Yeah,
that's another one, because it's another moving part. And they're going to need to replace a player as well. And there's only 10 days left.
Agree.
And Wissa has been pushing for a move, but it hasn't necessarily been to Tottenham. And so, yeah, I could see us like not missing out on that one. But then would Frank be disappointed that he didn't get his man? Because he's going to have to rely on the goals that we have now and hope that the squad push through and it doesn't come back to bite us. That we, you know, because the front line needs goals. We spoke about a lot of players, but do they have 10 plus goals in this division? The answer is no. The answer is no. Only Richarlison has, and that was as you said, a purple patch last season. He had 11 goals.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot, guys, if I can. I'm going to come around to you, Con. We also understand in Tottenham have now held internal talks to try and get a deal for Tyler Dibling over the line following the hijack of Eberechi Eze. That's been reported by Fabrizio Romano, of course, friend of the show. Look, Dibling, we understand, has been top of Everton's radar for a lot of this summer, who are still, I have to say, in negotiations to bring the 19-year-old to the club. What is standing Tottenham in good stead is that they have had a long-standing interest in the Southampton star, who enjoyed that breakthrough season of the 24-25 campaign. He showed a lot of flashes of promise across the 33 league appearances, scoring twice, providing 1 assist. I have to say to you, Con, if Tyler Dibling is a deal announced next, God help Tyler Dibling, Con. I'm worried for him personally if he is going to be announced next. I think if Tottenham make a real good couple of genuine statement signings and then it's Tyler Dibling to follow those, I think everyone gives him a really good, welcome to the club. And that's nothing against the kid, but right now I think for him alone as well, Tottenham needs to bring in genuine first-team quality, and I'm not sure if Tyler Dibling, whilst he's got great potential, is that. What's your gauge on that, Con, with Tottenham coming back in for the player?
I completely agree with you. I mean, I think there was a collective sigh of disappointment probably across the Spurs fan base as they opened Twitter and read this rumour, right? I think the problem, and look, you made the point. Look, he's an 18-year-old kid, and it's no reflection on him. And but there's so much wrong with this as a link for us. One being that he primarily plays on the right wing, which is where we all want to see Kudus play. So he's almost the exact opposite of an attacking signing that we need. The second point is we've got enough young wingers who may or may not make it, in the likes of Tell, Odebert. You've got Mikey Moore on loan, you've got Yang on loan. So, it comes back to that point of wanting to sign more established attacking signings. And then there's the final point that, for me, to be honest, I watched him a few times at Southampton. He showed glimpses. He may well become an excellent player in 5 years' time, but I wasn't blown away with him, I have to say. He didn't tear it up, So I think he showed the stats there. He got 2 goals, no assists, right? I know he's playing in a poor team, but it's not. It's another one of these potentials, and we just can't afford another potential signing in the attacking positions when he doesn't even play in the. His primary position isn't even in the position we need, either in the 10 or as a left winger. So not for me, unfortunately.
Just to ask you, kind of stick on the subject of wingers, Xavi Simons has also been linked, but I think it seems very well known that Chelsea has been really his first choice for a long, long time now. How much would a Xavi Simons appease the fan base? Is that an area that you see Tottenham looking at? And if they were to go for Xavi Simons, does that then maybe disrupt that move for Savinho, being he's also seen as a forward-thinking player? What's your gauge on that for you?
Maybe, I suppose with Xavi Simons, you can play him in the 10 as well as on the left. It seems like he's got his heart set on Chelsea, although obviously Chelsea have struggled to get that deal over the line. I think obviously he's way more established than some of the other, the likes of Tyler Dibling, for example. So it would be a really good signing if you could make it, but I just can't see that one happening because he seems so set on Chelsea. And I think the problem for us with Xavi Simons again is sort of I don't know how strong our interest has been in him. Again, does this come back to, is this one where we should, earlier on in the window, do you go in and at Chelsea he's got a lot of competition for places.
Yep.
Whereas for us, surely we could sell that he's going to be one of the main men. But I don't know. Players continue to sign for Chelsea, don't they?
They do, and they continue to sell them as well, like you picked up on earlier, Con. They've done really, really well in the time of getting players out. Ash, for you, just on those two wingers, Tottenham Dibling, like we understand, Tottenham have held internal talks with you of getting this done. We also understand Tottenham have shown a genuine interest in trying to bring Xavi Simons to the club, but we do understand his heart is set on Chelsea. What's the optics of those two, Ash? Can they get either done between now and the end of the window? And what does that look like if either one do come to the club?
Tyler Dibling? Oh, come on, guys.
It's the blockbuster.
Wait a minute. You see what
that was what you waited for 20 past midnight, wasn't it? That one. That was the one waiting for.
Wait, listen. Hold on. Let's just bring it back to earth. This was a guy that got homesick from Southampton when he went on loan to Chelsea. Is that the same Tyler Dibling? And remember, we were murdering Brennan Johnson. Imagine Tyler Dibling did the mistake, and we would crucify him. And for me, I look at character. I look at personality traits, because it's not all about stats and looking sexy on the ball, because he looks all right on the ball. But the levels, in it, it's the optics, as you said, the drop down from an Eze, a Morgan Gibbs-White, to a Tyler Dibling. With that type of output, there's just no positives. There's nothing. People say, oh, you could play him in the 10. But like, he started off the season quite well, to be fair, though. He had something about him when he was playing for Southampton. But the second half of the season, in my opinion, yeah. But yeah, talking about, without being rude, talking about Xavi Simons. This guy is a prodigy, man. Like, I remember when he was playing at La Masia, Barcelona, Barcelona. He had the afro. Like a certain old school player that used to play with for Newcastle. Played also for Chelsea as a manager. Hullet.
Yeah.
Ruud Hullet. He had that crazy side Joe Bob hair coming out. And he was just running rings around these players, and he was like only like 5 foot tall, and the other kids were 6 foot tall. But yeah, now talking about him now, for me, he's just elite, in my opinion. Like, if Cole Palmer is cold, this guy is fire. He's gonna get bombs off seats. I'm telling you. Whether he ends up at Spurs, wherever he ends up, I don't think we're enough.
If Tottenham were to somehow, Ash, take him from the claws of Chelsea, does that bring back a bit of credibility for what's gone wrong this summer? If they were to bring him to the club, do you think? Is it that much of a needle mover, Xavi Simons, in your opinion, if they can get him?
He's a needle mover, but I think because he's not Prem proven and fans haven't seen it in the Prem, it's hard. It's a hard one. And also, as Connor said, his heart was on Chelsea. So for when you're saying your heart's on Chelsea, like, that don't sit right with Spurs. I don't know about other Spurs fans, but like, I don't know, man, if that's gonna work well. But look, I'm not so sentimental, to be fair. So if we do get that deal done, like, I'll forget about all of that. Especially if he bangs goals and he creates for us. Who cares, man? Just get them in. I want the quality.
Yeah. I know what's been banning around coming over to Brian. I know many are asking about Paqueta. As things stands, we've not had any credible links from Paqueta to Tottenham. Otherwise, we would be discussing him. I think as things stand with regards to that player, it seems like he's going to give West Ham his word and stay with him, given they've supported him during his recent betting case that he's obviously won. I don't see a world in which West Ham could get away with selling Kudus and Paqueta to us without causing riots between the two football clubs. I mean, I just think that wouldn't be acceptable. Look, I think Paqueta's a really good player, but we can obviously only deal with the ones really that have been linked to us. Brian, your take on Simmons and Dibling? What's your gauge on both those players for you?
So let's deal with Simmons first. We've just had what happened with Eze and Arsenal could come and Kazumdos. Chelsea, he said he wants it. Can you imagine? This has got we go in for him, get things lined up, and Chelsea come and steal it all over. And could you imagine a summer where we lose out to Chelsea and Arsenal and do all the groundwork? The banter will be off the chain.
Right, can I tell you something? Yes, I can. I can imagine it.
This would be as much as he's a terrific player, and he looks like Ashback said, one that really will become a world star. If Chelsea had been after him for a while, it smacks of Eze Mark II. So I'd go absolutely nowhere near it, and Chelsea will just do it quickly. As for Tyler Dibling, oh dear. So we ended the season with it. End of season program notes. We've tasted success. We need to use this for a springboard for success. We need to win the Premier League. What team that wants to aim for the Premier League goes and buys relegated players 3 years in a row? And two of them wingers were already stacked. Does that scream to you a team that wants success? And like Connor said, he plays on the right wing where we want to see Kudus. It goes back to the beginning with this scattergun thing. He has been a link for a long, long time. I'm sure Dibling will turn out to be an England international and do well.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Why don't we be the team if he goes to Everton and we see how he does at Everton, and then we go, do you know what? You proved yourself. Bang, in you come. We have so many youngsters, so many wingers, and we're looking for them again. So as much as, and like you said, if Dibling was to be the next signing, the very next one,
God help us.
Oh dear Lord. Oh dear Lord. Yeah. I would remain off social media for the day and YouTube because it's just not. It's not fair on Dibling as well. It's not fair on Paz.
It's not fair on the
kid, if he comes in, they're young talent. Yeah. Whereas they go to big clubs, like one of them went to Paris Saint-Germain or whatever, they have elite players around them. Elite. The way I look at it is when we had Dele Alli, when he first came, you look at that Poch team. Dele Alli had 10 players around him, that were at a standard, a very high standard that could help him through the game, nurture him, teach him. Now they come to Spurs, they won't get that. They need to stand up and be counted, and it's not fair on them. We need some established stars. So no to Simmons because I could just see Eze Mark II, and I can't go through a year of having Chelsea and Arsenal having that over us. And I think it's too soon for Dibling.
Yeah. Brian, thank you so much for that, guys. I'm going to close with you in a second. Just to bring everybody an update on Morgan Rogers and why we haven't made him the big part of this show. We understand Tottenham at some point were looking at bringing Morgan Rogers to the club. Contact had been made with intermediaries to see if a deal was possible. It's expected if Tottenham were to have moved for Rogers, it would cost in the region of 80 million, but it may take even a higher figure than that due to Aston Villa serious league having to consider his sale. Very important we say this. Villa don't want to sell, but there's a feeling an actual bid could change things amid PSR pressures. Michael Bridgie, friend of the show, has said from his understanding there is no truth in reports that Tottenham are going to be looking to make a bid in the region or around 80 million for Morgan Rogers, despite Spurs, as I've mentioned, making a couple of calls to try and understand the player's availability. He has been actually spoken of being a dream target, but it is seen as a very difficult deal to do, given Villa want to keep the player. And also you have to remember, they have also just let go recently Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle. We have had, again, some couple of maybe would say fantasy rumours maybe. there were suggestions in the earlier part of the day that Tottenham were in talks to try and bring Real Madrid star Rodrigo on a season-long loan. Madrid are happy to sanction the loan move as long as Spurs cover all of his wages. I think a lot of us would think that is hard to believe. I'm guessing by the fact I'm not seeing any reaction from the panel, they also believe that's utter bollocks. Yep, that seems to be the case. Excuse my French. Let's close on some news, which again kind of sums up Tottenham's summer. We understand Spurs have tried to, in this last 24 hours, offload both Manos Solomon and Brian Hill to AS Roma. And we understand the Italian club have told Tottenham in no outright terms they have refused both and got absolutely no interest whatsoever in either player. So it's fair to say it might be hard in these next 10 days to force these players. Just how important are these next 10 days and the optics to give Thomas Frank the squad he deserves as we are looking, I say, to bring a close to this show? How important is this to get the club get this right and target real, genuine quality? Genuine quality.
It's hugely important, right? I mean, just quickly on those two, Solomon and Gill. I mean, we haven't even spoke about how bad we are at selling as well. But that's, let's not get into that at 12:30. But
I thought we just as a given, really.
Yeah, it's just horrific. But again, it all comes back to, I think, on that we set unrealistic prices and no one wants to deal with Levy, and it's more comfortable for us to not force these players out. But anyway, on your question around giving Frank the tools to compete really this season, it's hugely important. We don't have the get out of jail free card that we had last year in the Europa League, and so we've all seen what the top four have done in terms of the business, and they're now in a different stratosphere, I think, to where we are, which is hugely disappointing, obviously. But I did think coming into this season, with a strong window, with the fact that we knew that Villa weren't going to do a huge amount of work this window. Newcastle had a toughish window. We did have an opportunity with the hiring of Frank to really close the gap in terms of, looking at that sort of between 5th and 7th, those European places. But unfortunately, it looks like as it stands, they've not given him the tools to do that. And so, look, we are where we are. I think there's a lot of heavy lifting that Frank's quality in coaching is going to have to do as it stands right now.
Do you think, Con, just finally to ask you, do you think we're going to get some surprise names in these next 10 days that we wouldn't have seen linked? Or do you think what we're discussing now are the targets we'll be discussing in 8-9 days' time?
Oh, there'll be some surprises for sure. And I suspect Brian will know this more than me. And Brian has been holding the banner and the placard for a lot longer. But Levy has this knack of pulling a rabbit out of the hat that gets fans back on side at the 11th hour. And so it wouldn't shock me to see, a deal come out of nowhere, which is, at a huge level that suddenly gets those fans that are maybe slightly more fickle back on side. But yeah, I think look, I'm sure we'll sign at least one player in the next 10 days, which is an outrageous thing to have to say. But let's see.
Yeah, let's quickly go on that point. Ash, will quickly just say, look to wrap. But for you, do you share Connor's feelings on that in terms of what this next 10 days mean and how they've got to get this right?
Ladies, gentlemen, we must replace Son. We must. We cannot go any further without replace. Do you know how heartbreaking it was to see him leave? And then now he's looking back and watching the team and thinking, wow, who's come to replace? Well, you can't replace Son, first of all, but we need to have that figurehead that we're always thinking about. We cannot go into a Champions League season and not have a player in that final third that can carry the band. We have to get, it can't be Tell. Like, if it's Tell, and big up Tell, brother, he has to be strong. I know, we get discriminated against, racism, prejudice. I'm with it, it's part of being black and young and black. It is what it is. But we move. But we need a guy that's going to come in and ready now. We need a ready now player that's going to help lift the club, lift the fans. And we're trying to change I believe Frank is trying to change the culture. And what better way by bringing in a player or bringing in a face that gives fans hope and optimism, and a player that you don't have to Google. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to say, do you know what I mean? So I'm hoping we get not just the Son replacement, but a Maddison and Kulu. Because remember, he said 2 10s, but at least 2 players, where one on the left and one in the middle. Simple. I'm not asking for fullbacks and strikers. Maybe we're being too greedy. I don't know. But at this stage of the window, bro, we're Spurs at the moment. And I was hoping things would be different. But, you know.
We're all hoping something different. Ash, thank you so much. Brian, are you, you know, as well as all of us, we've been talking off there a big 10 days in store, big 10 days in store to try and give Thomas Frank some genuine support. I nearly fell off the back of my chair when Con said we should get more than one. I thought, God, what is this 10 days going to look like? We're going to only get one.
I mean, first of all, the loans that you were mentioning, I mean, the blasphemy going on about Brian Hill, who is, can you believe he's our second longest serving player? After Ben Davies, Brian Hill is the second longest serving player in the Tottenham squad. And that's worked out well, hasn't it? That has worked out. That has been a deal and a half. We've seen the best of it, and we can't even get him out the door.
I know it's late. We got a break. We got a wrap. But the thing is, what's funny is, do you remember that debate at the time when people were thinking, "Oh, you know, Lamella, we're going to really let Lamella go for Brian Hill"? Do you remember this at the time? Yep. It was mental, that debate, and now here we are, where second longest serving player.
Second longest serving player, and we gave him back to Sevilla when Lamella had. When we gave him, said, "Here you go, have him back as well." Listen, this window, like Connor said, he does have a habit of pulling him out. The Rafa van der Vaarts, the Kulusevskis, the Bentancurs, that come out of nowhere. But football has changed since then, and obviously, what he used to love doing was playing poker, and where you could literally drag the price down and leave you just keep putting pressure on. Well, these teams, like we spoke earlier, your Bournemouth, your Forest, or whatever, they're more powerful now. He needs, like Ash said, number 10, left winger needs to come in, and the left winger needs to be a high caliber one, because as much as I think Odegaard can develop, as Frank has said, he can't do it on his own.
No,
in Champions League and 4 games a week. So let's just hope we can get those 2 positions sorted, and hopefully of quality that can walk into this team.
Yeah, it's fair to say we're going to need to find some quality in these next few weeks. I'm hoping we'll be able to bring that quality onto the screen. Listen, guys, massive thank you for all your support. It's going to be a very interesting next 10 days as to what Tottenham do, where we're going to have to act fast. Con, I want to say a massive thank you, mate. We're going to hopefully get you back on before the window closes. I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say potentially these next 10 days, Con, right? Because it feels it's a big 10 days for the club. Ash, thank you so much over at Spurs Kings TV. Keep liking and subscribing to Ash over there. To Brian at Tottenham on Tour, keep making sure you're giving that a like and subscribe. And guys, thank you again for your support. Over nearly, 14,000 of you that are watching Last Word on Spurs. We wish we could bring you more positive news as we go into the last 10 days of the window. Will it be a lucky 10 days? Is it a hopeful 10 days? Will it be a delivery of 10 days of quality? We shall see. From Con, from Ash, from Brian, from me. We've been the Last Word on Spurs. Keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.